Somebody who has paid maybe $60,000 or $65,000 for a very high-end pickup truck, well, even the average pickup truck now is going to be crossing over that $50,000 barrier.
You trusted these trucks with your job, your family, your money. But under the hood, a ticking time bomb. A new report just exposed 14 pickups that fail catastrophically before even hitting 25,000 miles. Stay till number 1. It's the most shocking failure yet. Chevrolet Colorado. When the Chevrolet Colorado first hit the market in the early 2000s, it was praised as a bold alternative to the bulkier full-size pickups dominating the streets. With its lighter frame, smaller footprint, and smoother ride, it promised just enough utility for the average contractor, commuter, or weekend warrior who didn't need a 3/4-ton workhorse. Positioned as a more accessible and efficient option, the early Colorado seemed like the perfect compromise. And then came the engine, a 3.5-liter inline 5-cylinder. Unique? Yes. Practical? Not even close. The inline 5-cylinder engine offered by General Motors was meant to bridge the gap between a 4-cylinder and a V6. What it delivered instead was a frustrating medley of failures that began to surface before the odometer even hit 25,000 miles. Among the most notorious issues was valve seat drop, a catastrophic malfunction where the valve seat would break free and tumble into the combustion chamber. The result? Misfires, loss of compression, backfiring, and in many cases, complete engine failure. Owners also experienced persistent fuel injector problems. These led to lean running conditions, rough idle, and mysterious check engine lights that no amount of coil packs or spark plugs could solve. As if that wasn't enough, timing chain guides frequently failed, camshaft phasers wore out prematurely, and the tensioners simply couldn't maintain consistent timing. Many engines jumped time without warning, which often meant bent valves, or worse. But Colorado owners weren't alone. Another so-called mid-size mistake was quietly brewing across the street at Nissan. Nissan Frontier. At first glance, the Nissan Frontier looked like the perfect no-nonsense pickup. It had boxy good looks, a tough frame, and just enough size to be useful without being overbearing. Nissan marketed it as a tried-and-true mid-size workhorse, ideal for those who needed capability without the full-size price tag. And for a while, it earned a reputation for being affordable, practical, and rugged. But beneath that exterior was one of the longest-running mechanical landmines in the automotive industry, a ticking time bomb disguised as tradition. The second-generation Frontier barely changed at all from the year 2005 until its long-overdue redesign in the year 2022. That's not just lazy product planning, it's negligent. The most infamous failure, a catastrophic radiator defect nicknamed the strawberry milkshake of death. In thousands of trucks, engine coolant slowly seeped into the automatic transmission fluid through a cracked radiator. The result was a pink milkshake-like fluid that corroded everything inside the transmission, often leading to total failure. Owners reported symptoms as early as 30,000 miles, though some unlucky ones experienced complete breakdowns before even reaching 25,000. But the problems didn't stop there. Manual transmission models were plagued by early clutch failures, often under light usage. Timing chain guide wear caused loud whining noises and posed serious threats to long-term engine health. Fuel sending units were so unreliable that entire model years, especially between 2005 and 2008, left drivers with dead gauges and trucks that refused to start. And while Nissan dragged their feet, Toyota rushed in with something new and still got it disastrously wrong. If even one of these trucks made your jaw drop, hit that like button. It helps this video reach more people before they waste thousands. And if you're tired of the industry covering up these failures, subscribe right now. We're not done exposing the truth. Toyota Tundra. For over a decade, loyal Toyota fans waited for something big. The Toyota Tundra had built a reputation for rock-solid dependability, long-term durability, and a V8 engine that seemed to last forever. So when Toyota finally unveiled the fully redesigned Tundra in the year 2022, expectations couldn't have been higher. Gone was the old-school V8. In its place came a modern twin-turbocharged V6 and a cutting-edge hybrid powertrain. Toyota promised more torque, better fuel economy, and a luxury-level interior loaded with the latest tech. It sounded like the best of both worlds on paper. But within just a few months of the launch, real-world owners uncovered a harsh truth. Toyota had overpromised and undertested. The most immediate problem? Catastrophic turbocharger failures, some occurring before the truck even hit 10,000 miles. Drivers reported sudden power loss, smoke from the exhaust, and engine shutdowns that left them stranded. In many cases, replacements were delayed due to parts shortages, leading to weeks or even months without a functioning truck. The hybrid models brought their own set of nightmares. Designed to elevate Toyota into the future, these powertrains instead overheated in warm climates, triggered red warning lights, and required high-cost repairs most owners never expected from a Toyota product. The massive 14-inch touchscreen, intended as a showpiece of modern design, turned into a liability. Glitchy software led to freezes, blackouts, and unresponsive menus mid-drive. At least Toyota tried something new. The next truck failed because it refused to change anything at all. Dodge Dakota. It once held a unique place in the truck world. It was marketed as the perfect middle ground, bigger than a compact, smaller than a full-size, and versatile enough for urban drivers and weekend haulers alike. Dodge promised the Dakota would give buyers the best of both worlds: easy maneuverability with real pickup utility. In theory, it could have been a game changer, but in reality, the Dakota aged quickly, gained unnecessary weight, and never found its footing. By the late 2000s, the Dakota had bulked up without gaining any meaningful power or capability. The optional 4.7-liter V8 engine sounded promising on paper, but under-delivered on performance and efficiency. Owners frequently reported sluggish acceleration and disappointing fuel economy that hovered in the low teens. Worse, the transmission proved notoriously fragile. Drivers experienced hard shifts, slipping between gears, and total transmission failure, sometimes before hitting 30,000 miles. Suspension flaws also plagued this generation. Front-end rattles, loose steering, and rapidly worn ball joints were common complaints. Owners described a vague, unplanted ride that became dangerous at highway speeds. Braking systems failed to inspire confidence, with warped rotors and premature wear, causing violent shuddering and long stopping distances. Sales numbers reflected the decline. In 2005, Dodge sold over 104,000 Dakotas. By 2011, that number plummeted to fewer than 12,000. Dodge quietly killed off the Dakota, leaving behind a legacy of missed potential and mechanical mediocrity. And if you think Dodge missed the mark here, wait until we dig into what they did to the Hemi. Ram 1500. There's something about the word Hemi that stirs excitement in truck buyers. It conjures images of roaring V8 power, American engineering dominance, and unmatched toughness. Slap that badge on a truck, and suddenly it feels like you're driving a piece of performance history. That's exactly what drew countless buyers to this generation of the Ram 1500. They wanted the muscle, the sound, the legacy. Unfortunately, what many of them got was something far more frustrating: a ticking time bomb under the hood. The 4.7-liter and 5.7-liter engines powering these trucks suffered from a host of internal failures, many of which surfaced well before the odometer reached 25,000 miles. Rocker arms, which should have lasted the life of the engine, would suddenly dislodge, causing misfires and damaging the valve train. In even worse cases, valve seats dropped directly into the combustion chamber, resulting in catastrophic engine failure with no warning. A key culprit in the widespread breakdowns was the multi-displacement system, Chrysler's early cylinder deactivation technology. Instead of improving fuel efficiency, it introduced a fatal weakness. Lifters would seize or collapse, causing uneven camshaft wear, excessive ticking noises, and eventual full engine teardown. These weren't isolated incidents. They became such a known issue that some mechanics began recommending permanent lifter disablement for reliability. Sludge buildup also plagued the 4.7-liter variants, often forming despite adherence to factory oil change schedules. Narrow oil passages and poor thermal design meant that even clean engines could suffer from clogged internals, especially under heavy loads or high mileage. The next truck didn't just tick, it exploded literally. Ford F-150. The best-selling truck in America isn't supposed to be a mechanical grenade, yet for a generation of buyers, that's exactly what they got. While it offered familiar styling, rugged appeal, and strong marketing around American reliability, the truth beneath the hood was far more troubling, especially if your model came equipped with the 5.4-liter Triton 5.8. Among the most infamous engine defects in modern pickup history, spark plug ejection tops the list. Due to a design flaw in the aluminum cylinder heads, the spark plugs in these engines had far too few threads to hold them securely. Over time, heat cycles and combustion pressure would cause them to work loose, and when they let go, they did so violently. Spark plugs would blast out of the engine, destroying the head and leaving the truck disabled. It didn't just cause engine damage, it shattered owner confidence. Ford's fix? A redesigned two-piece spark plug. Unfortunately, it created a new nightmare. These plugs often seized in the head and snapped in half during removal, turning what should have been routine maintenance into a costly extraction job. Some repair shops even refused to service them without a damage waiver. The disaster continued with cam phaser failures. These components, which control valve timing, wore out prematurely, especially in engines with minor oiling issues. The result was loud ticking, rough idle, and loss of power, all compounded by oil sludge buildup that affected timing chain tensioners and lubrication paths. In the end, what was marketed as a dependable workhorse turned into a dealership frequent flyer. Despite strong sales numbers, the 5.4-liter Triton left thousands of drivers frustrated, out of pocket, and scrambling for long-term fixes. And while Ford was launching spark plugs, General Motors was launching lifters straight into the scrap bin. Chevrolet Silverado 1500. Dependability has long been the promise behind the Chevrolet Silverado name. With bold styling, muscular engine options, and a heritage rooted in American work ethic, this generation of Silverado was marketed as the ultimate all-purpose pickup, strong enough for the job site, refined enough for the suburbs. Buyers had every reason to expect rock-solid reliability, especially with proven V8 power plants under the hood. But hidden beneath that confidence was one of the most damaging engineering gambles General Motors had ever made. To chase better fuel economy, General Motors equipped many Silverado models with active fuel management and dynamic fuel management systems, technologies that shut down engine cylinders when not in use. While great on paper, they introduced a fatal flaw: weak lifters. Owners across the country began experiencing lifter collapse, sometimes before 25,000 miles. These lifters, designed to disengage for cylinder deactivation, would get stuck or fail entirely, leading to misfires, erratic performance, and expensive camshaft damage. Full engine teardowns were often required. Adding to the pain was the 8-speed automatic transmission. What should have been a smooth shifting gearbox instead delivered violent shuddering, delayed engagement, and unpredictable downshifts. Technical service bulletins were issued, fluid flushes recommended, and software updates applied, but problems persisted. For many, the torque converter was the ultimate point of failure, turning daily drives into frustrating, jerky ordeals. And then there was the infamous Chevy Shake, a mysterious vibration at highway speeds that no dealership could consistently diagnose or resolve. Some blamed driveline harmonics, others pointed to frame design. But for owners, the result was the same: a truck that felt unstable and unfinished, even when brand new. Speaking of tech gone wrong, let's talk about the hybrid that left people stranded with zero warning. Ford F-150 PowerBoost Hybrid. Bringing hybrid technology to the best-selling pickup in America seemed like a bold and brilliant move. With the Ford F-150 PowerBoost, the automaker promised the perfect marriage of brute force and cutting-edge efficiency. It came with big numbers: 430 horsepower, 570 pound-feet of torque, and better fuel economy than a standard EcoBoost. It even boasted an onboard generator powerful enough to run a job site. On paper, it was a revolution. In reality, it became one of the most frustrating modern trucks ever sold. The problems began almost immediately. Owners reported sudden and repeated check engine lights tied to battery drain, faulty control modules, and electrical inconsistencies. In many cases, the hybrid battery system caused the truck to shut down mid-drive without warning. Diagnosing the issue was often a nightmare, with technicians unable to replicate the fault or waiting weeks for specialized parts. Some trucks sat at dealerships for over a month, leaving owners without transportation and without answers. Transmission issues only made matters worse. The 10-speed automatic transmission used in the PowerBoost frequently downshifted harshly, hesitated under load, or shuddered during acceleration. While Ford issued service bulletins to address shifting logic, they arrived after countless drivers had already experienced drivability problems, and often after warranty thresholds had passed. Even the promised fuel economy proved disappointing. While marketing touted 24 miles per gallon combined, real-world driving often returned closer to 20. Add in the nearly 750 pounds of extra weight from hybrid components, and the truck's towing capacity actually dropped compared to its non-hybrid counterpart. The next truck had the perfect diesel partner, but the marriage ended in disaster. Nissan Titan XD Cummins diesel. At launch, the Nissan Titan XD promised something unique: a truck that sat between half-ton comfort and 3/4-ton strength. It was marketed as the sweet spot for buyers who needed more towing power than a typical pickup, but didn't want to jump into the harsh ride and high price of a heavy-duty behemoth. The biggest selling point? A 5-liter turbocharged diesel V8, developed in partnership with none other than Cummins, a name synonymous with bulletproof performance and legendary torque. For many buyers, that Cummins badge was all the assurance they needed. But almost immediately, the cracks began to show. One of the most common and damaging failures was in the diesel particulate filter system. This emissions control device frequently clogged, especially in urban or stop-and-go driving conditions. When it did, the truck would initiate forced regeneration cycles, burning extra fuel to clear the system. These cycles often failed or triggered limp mode, drastically reducing power and rendering the vehicle nearly undrivable until reset or serviced. The turbocharger system was equally unreliable. Drivers reported whining noises, smoke from the exhaust, and complete boost failure, sometimes within the first 30,000 miles. In some cases, turbo replacement wasn't just costly, it also required days in the shop due to parts scarcity and complex diagnostics. The high-pressure fuel system didn't fare much better. Fuel injectors wore prematurely, pumps failed under load, and emission sensors often triggered warning lights with no obvious solution. Combined with the DPF problems and turbo failures, the Titan XD became known for being in the shop more than on the road. But the worst diesel debacle wasn't Nissan's. It was hiding inside a Ram 1500 EcoDiesel. When Ram introduced the EcoDiesel engine in its 1500 lineup, it was met with excitement and industry praise. Here was a light-duty truck offering class-leading fuel economy, massive torque, and long-distance cruising power, all with the promise of diesel durability. The 3-liter V6 diesel engine, built by VM Motori, even won awards and earned headlines. For a moment, it looked like Ram had changed the game. Then came the breakdowns and the lawsuits. One of the most dangerous issues involved internal coolant leaks contaminating engine oil. This led to rapid oil dilution, reduced lubrication, and low oil pressure warnings, sometimes resulting in complete engine failure. In other cases, the camshaft gear would slip on the timing mechanism, knocking engine timing off just enough to cause valve-to-piston contact. The result? Catastrophic engine damage that often required a full rebuild. The exhaust gas recirculation cooler, another emissions-related component, was known to crack internally. When it failed, it could dump coolant into the intake tract, causing thick white smoke, overheating, and major engine wear, often without triggering immediate warning lights. Add to that timing chain tensioner failures, worn oil pumps, and fragile emission sensors, and what emerged was a power plant that collapsed under its own complexity. The final blow came when Ram was caught in an emissions scandal. In response, the company issued a mandatory software update to bring the trucks into compliance, but the fix throttled performance, slashed fuel economy, and introduced drivability issues. Owners who once loved their EcoDiesels now found themselves stuck with slower, thirstier, less reliable trucks. We've seen trucks fail quietly, but the next one shook itself to death on the freeway. Jeep Gladiator. Adventure-ready looks, off-road credibility, and a bold design that screamed individuality. The Jeep Gladiator arrived with a wave of enthusiasm, borrowing heavily from the Wrangler's heritage while adding pickup truck practicality. It aimed to be the Swiss Army knife of mid-sized trucks. Jeep promised a do-it-all machine, rugged trail capability, daily driving comfort, and open-air freedom. For those dreaming of hauling gear through mountain passes and then cruising downtown with the top off, the Gladiator sounded like the perfect blend. But almost immediately, the dream began to shake, quite literally. The most alarming issue plaguing the Gladiator was the notorious death wobble, a violent, uncontrollable steering vibration at highway speeds. Though familiar to longtime Wrangler owners, seeing the exact same issue carry over into the Gladiator's supposedly new platform was deeply disappointing. The wobble often required multiple dealer visits, steering damper replacements, tire rebalancing, and still left drivers with lingering doubts about safety. Things didn't stop at the front suspension. Jeep issued a major recall in 2023 for over 14,000 manual transmission Gladiators due to a defect that could cause the clutch pressure plate to overheat and potentially start an engine bay fire. The fix required new parts, dealer labor, and weeks of downtime, if not outright replacement. Despite its midsize classification, the Gladiator carried a price tag north of $50,000 in many trims, far more than some full-size competitors. Yet its payload capacity lagged behind, and its handling was criticized as top-heavy, bouncy, and prone to tipping on uneven terrain. Now what happens when a midsize truck costs more than a full-size and delivers half the reliability? GMC Canyon. Built as the more refined sibling to the Chevrolet Colorado, the GMC Canyon aimed to appeal to buyers who wanted a midsize truck with premium touches. With upscale interior options, extra chrome, and a higher price tag, General Motors marketed the Canyon as a cut above the practical working man's luxury truck, and for some time, it seemed to fill that role. But behind the stitched leather and marketing bravado lay a platform plagued with issues. Issues that started early and often left owners questioning the premium they paid. One of the most common complaints centered on electrical glitches. From the first few thousand miles, owners experienced battery drain problems that left trucks dead overnight. The culprit? Faulty control modules that failed to power down electronics when the truck was off. But that was just the start. Climate control systems began to malfunction, with sensors misreading cabin temperatures and causing erratic heating and cooling. In colder climates, defrosting performance became so unreliable that it bordered on dangerous. Infotainment issues followed closely behind. Screens froze mid-drive, rebooted randomly, or refused to connect to smartphones. Backup cameras became unresponsive, an especially dangerous failure in tight parking lots or work work zones. For a truck sold as more premium, these tech failures felt like a betrayal of its core promise. Even the diesel variant, marketed as the fuel-efficient workhorse of the lineup, introduced expensive emission system problems. Diesel particulate filter failures, sensor malfunctions, and forced regenerations became common by 30,000 miles, with repairs costing thousands of dollars out of pocket. But even a flawed Canyon can't match what Ford stuffed under the hood of their diesel Superduty. Ford Superduty, built to tow, haul, and dominate any job site, the Ford Superduty lineup from the early 2000s looked unstoppable. With massive frames, heavy-duty drivetrains, and aggressive styling, these trucks were marketed as the ultimate diesel workhorses. Buyers expected legendary toughness and long-haul reliability, especially with the introduction of the 6.0-liter and 6.4-liter Power-stroke diesel engines. On the surface, these trucks had everything: power, torque, and presence. But once owners started putting miles on them, the problems began to pile up fast. The 6.0-liter Power-stroke engine, introduced in 2003, quickly earned a reputation for catastrophic head gasket failures. The root cause? Undersized head bolts that stretched under high boost pressure, allowing coolant and combustion gases to mix. This led to overheating, engine damage, and massive repair bills. The fix often required aftermarket head studs, new gaskets, and a full top-end teardown, a job that routinely cost over $10,000. Oil cooler failures were also rampant. When these coolers clogged internally, they restricted oil flow and sent contaminants into the turbocharger and exhaust gas recirculation cooler, creating a cascade of failures. Fuel injector control modules, glow plug systems, and even simple sensors became points of weakness, all contributing to no-start conditions or erratic behavior. The turbochargers themselves weren't immune either. Many units suffered from blown seals and stuck vanes, causing poor performance and thick smoke. The 6.4-liter Power-stroke, introduced in 2008, doubled down on complexity with twin turbochargers and an even more failure-prone emissions system. It added more power, but brought with it high-pressure fuel pump issues, injector wear, and coolant leaks that damaged internal components. And finally, the one engine that looked weird on paper and performed worse in real life. Toyota Hilux Diesel. For decades, the Toyota Hilux was a symbol of indestructibility. From war zones to deserts, jungles to job sites, the Hilux earned its reputation as the truck that could survive anything. In many parts of the world, it was more than a vehicle, it was a lifeline. So when Toyota released the 8th generation Hilux Diesel in 2015, expectations were sky high. This was supposed to be the next chapter in the Hilux legacy. Tougher, cleaner, more advanced. But what emerged shocked even Toyota's most loyal fans. The primary issue was with the diesel particulate filter system. Designed to meet tightening global emission standards, this component constantly clogged, especially in stop-and-go city driving. When that happened, the truck would enter limp mode, slashing power and triggering warning lights. Drivers were often forced to pull over, wait for a regeneration cycle, or head straight to the dealership. In some cases, forced regeneration failed entirely, leading to expensive replacements well before 30,000 miles. More troubling was fuel dilution. Unburned diesel seeped into the engine oil, reducing lubrication and accelerating internal wear. This problem led to premature injector failure, worn cylinder walls, and in extreme cases, complete engine failure. In hot and humid climates, the Hilux also showed unexpected rust patterns, especially around rear suspension mounts and underbody frame rails, a startling development for a truck known for its durability. The situation reached a boiling point in Australia, one of the Hilux's strongest markets. A class action lawsuit was filed, and Toyota was eventually forced to acknowledge the design flaws. A software update was issued in 2020, but by then, the damage to both the trucks and Toyota's reputation had already been done. You've just seen 14 trucks that break down before they even hit their stride. If this video helped you dodge a 5-figure disaster, smash that like button, drop your story in the comments, and subscribe. Because next time, we're taking aim at the SUVs that are just as bad and twice as expensive.